My name is Ken Estin, and I was one of the executive producer, creator, showrunners of The Tracy Ullman Show. And The Tracy Ullman Show is the birthplace of The Simpsons. I think people who are fans of The Simpsons probably know that. Maybe not. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to talk about what happened in the beginning. I don't know much about what happened in the actual running of the series because I was not a participant. So.
Understood. But you're here because you were there at the creation.
At the creation, the very start.
And you knew the key players.
I did, and I do.
Yeah. So let's start this. But how did you come to be on Tracy Ullman?
I had run Taxi for Jim Brooks, and Jim Brooks wanted to create the Tracy Ullman Show. I also ran Cheers, but and they wanted me to run the Tortellis, which I created. So I was actually in a weird situation where the people I respected most in the business, I will name names here because I'm saying something good.
Go ahead.
It's Jim Brooks for Taxi, and Glenn Les Charles and Jim Burrows for Cheers. And they both asked me to stick with the pilots. We created a Tracy Ullman pilot, and I created a Tortelli's pilot, and both asked me to run the shows. And I chose the Tracy Ullman Show because Fox Studios offered me a movie deal as part of they both offered me the same money, same perks, same everything, but Fox offered me a movie deal, a really lucrative movie deal, more than normal. So I went with Fox in the Tracy Ullman Show. And at that point, when I got to Jim and let me know if I'm running on about the wrong
I will.
tangent.
Don't worry. Go ahead.
So Jim Brooks wanted to work with Tracy, and he didn't know what kind of show to do. So he collected people he liked working with. And since I'd worked with him on Taxi, he was kind of my mentor. I was his kind of protege. Because I started on Taxi off one spec script, and I didn't know anything about writing for half-hour comedy. So Jim taught me, but so did Glenn and Les, who were running Taxi when I got there. I had all these conflicts, so I struggled with them and then made the wrong choice, because I really think going to the Tracy Ullman Show for my career was a terrible choice. Had I not made that choice, so there'd be no Simpsons. So for me, it was a bad choice. For the world and those who love The Simpsons, it was the right choice.
Okay, there's so many things that you said there that were interesting that I want to get into.
Okay.
So there would be no Simpsons because you don't think the show would have gone without?
Because I'm the one who said, okay, I left this part out. I will backtrack a little bit.
Hold on one second.
Just 1 second. I'm just stepping in.
If I can call you, Ken.
I'm just stepping in for a quick little adjustment here.
Okay.
Just a second.
Actually, I guess it begs the question, you think Tortelli's would have gone longer?
I think it would have been a success.
Yeah.
See, can I talk about Tortelli's a little?
Sure.
It's kind of off subject.
It's a little off subject, but it weaves into. I'm
Okay.
interested. I didn't know that you had to pick between them, which is interesting to me.
So
why
both,
you picked Ullman is interesting.
Yeah, both shows got picked up in the same season, which is rare. I had two shows on the air, and I could run either one. Both wanted me to run the shows. The thing with the problem with Tortelli's was that I created a show in which I gave Nick Tortelli and his wife kind of complicated personalities rather than making them comical, one-dimensional characters. When I said I'd do the Tortellis in the first place, because it was a spin-off of Cheers, I said with the condition that the characters can no longer be one-dimensional. I don't want to run a series where my lead character, one-dimensional. And they said okay, and I wrote the series and we shot it, and it tested through the roof, and the network said it was one of their best pilots that season, and it was NBC at the time.
And it was Dan Hedaya, right?
Dan Hedaya, yeah. And he was great in it. He played like a one-dimensional guy who found his other dimensions. And that's why it got picked up. That's why it was a hit, the pilot. when I chose the Tracy Ullman show because I wanted the movie deal, I kind of let down a lot of people at the Tortellis. And when they had their first party, I showed up and kind of didn't get a great reception because they were not too happy about it. What happened is they hired a showrunner, and the showrunner was one person. The showrunner went back to the one-dimensional characters and destroyed the show. So I think had I gone with the Tortellis, it would have been a success. And instead I went with Tracy Ullman. And Tracy Ullman also was successfully critically. We won Emmys, got nominations and all sorts of things. But it never got good numbers because Fox was just starting. It was on Fox. Also, that was a dumb choice because I could have stayed at NBC with a show with Glenn Les Charles. I chose a movie deal connected to a series that was at a network that was just starting. It was really a stupid choice. I have to tell you, I didn't have an agent at the time. I'd had an agent for years, whose name I won't mention, and we had a falling out over the deal he made with the Tracy Ullman shows and the Tortellis. He got personally involved in the way he wanted the outcome, and so I had to let him go. And that's why I won't mention his name, though he's a really good agent. We had such a falling out over that I quit him, and so I didn't have any advice except my cousin, who was this is crazy. My cousin was a commercial agent. He represented talent for commercials. And he said he'd give me advice, because I'm a businessman as far as producing shows, but I'm not a businessman when it comes to running my career. I didn't have a manager, I didn't have an agent, so my cousin stepped in and gave me the world's worst advice. So I would have been better off asking you or the guy that just sold me a burrito at Paquito Moss. Oops, I named it a company.
It's all right, but hindsight's 20/20.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Tortelli's. And when I got there, you know, I really enjoyed working with Jim Brooks, and I also worked with Heidi Perlman and Jerry Belson. We all were co-creators of the show.
And I'm going to ask you about all those people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're all wonderful people. It was a great group of people, and we all had lots of experience in sitcoms, but no experience in variety shows. But Jim said Tracy was so talented, he didn't think we could catch all her talent in a sitcom, that we needed either a sitcom where she's an entertainer or just a variety show where she can do everything. She can act in sketches, she can also sing and dance. So we went that way.
You've alluded to it, but I wonder if you could explain a little bit for people who are younger than us, that don't remember what Fox was as a network at that time. American television couldn't have been more different in the late 80s than it is now.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Fox, I guess, Fox was the fledgling network. Fox didn't reach the whole country. That's,
right.
I guess that's part of why they used the movie deal to entice you to go work for them, right? So can you paint a picture for me of what picking Fox over NBC meant at that time?
Well, for the television deal, it was stupidity, and I made the decision, so I get to claim all the stupidity. I had really terrible advice, but I went with them for the movie, and I'd done TV for a long time, and I just really liked the deal they'd give me for my movie. So I loved Tracy's talent. I met Tracy. I saw some of her clips, and I knew working with her would be a pleasure and creatively stimulating, but I did it for the movie, and that was a mistake. And I always tell people you should pick the thing that's best for you instead of speculating on what other people will help you or deliver or allow you to do, because what ended up happening with the movie is it just went away.
Right. But going to Fox for you was a step down.
Step down and big mistake.
But tell me about, if you can you describe what Fox was at the time?
Okay.
Yeah.
At the time, Fox was just an idea that everybody said was crazy, because there were 3 networks at the time, ABC, NBC, CBS, who just barely were whoever emerged as the leader made a lot of money that year, and the other two wouldn't. And so they didn't think there was room for a fourth network, a fourth full network. And Fox came along, and people said to me, you know, even if your show's a hit, you're on a network that nobody's watching, and it's probably going to fail, so why would you do that? And I didn't want to say I'm doing it for the movie. I just said, well, I like the Tracy Ullman project. But the truth was there was no project yet because we didn't know what we were going to do with Tracy. So we had a meeting. We went to Ojai, California, which is kind of way out in the boondocks, for a conference with just us, the four executive producer, creator, writers, which I mentioned were Jim Brooks, Jerry Belson, Heidi Perlman, and myself. Ken Estin. I have to say Ken Estin more often. So we went to a country club in Ojai, and we got a room, and we played a little golf, and we sat and we rented a space for the conference, and we just sat and we tried to talk about what we did, what we would do, and we ultimately decided we would do a variety show for Tracy. And the variety show would be sketches so she could act, but we'd also have one sketch that was a musical sketch with singing and dancing, so we could show everybody her talent as a singer-dancer. She could do everything.
And can I ask you right there, that's an unusual decision for American television at the time. The variety show was pretty dead, right?
Absolutely, the variety show was dead. And so that was another stupid, I mean, if you're going to make a stupid decision, you might as well make two, right? So.
Well, but was part of it, let me ask you, I don't mean to lead the witness, but was part of it like, well, part of it is it's Jim Brooks and they were going to do whatever he wanted, right?
Yes.
Right.
It was picked up immediately because it was Jim Brooks, yes.
And I'll ask you to clarify why that is in a moment, but what I was getting at is, because Fox was what you just described, the fledgling network, I guess they were willing to do, if you guys wanted to do a variety show, they were probably willing to do it, whereas ABC, NBC, and CBS
Oh, yeah,
weren't,
good
right?
point. Yeah, and anywhere else we wouldn't have been able to choose whether we want to do a variety or a sketch show or pornography, you know. We pretty much, Fox said, do whatever you want, because they had Jim Brooks. And they also, I was doing very well in my career at that time too, so all of us were kind of a prize for them. Jim was the big prize, but the whole group were really well-established, successful people.
They had to make sweet deals with you guys to get you guys,
Yes,
right?
they made sweet deals for everybody, yes.
Let's talk about these four people. I know you're telling the story, but I want you to, if you can, paint a picture for those who don't know who Jim Brooks was at that time.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim Brooks, who was my mentor, which is what he's most famous for, had done everything. He had so many Emmys for all his television work. The Mary Tyler Moore Show, going way back, Phyllis, and what else? I don't remember.
Taxi.
Well, then I was going to get to Taxi. Then he did Taxi at the time that I was just getting out of college as an English major with a creative writing minor, which is unusual. Most of those guys came from other fields. But I was actually a creative writing enthusiast, and I had experience at that, but I had no experience writing television scripts. So I wrote a spec script, just one spec script. I've only written one spec script in my life. I wrote this spec script, which was an old Bob Newhart show where he was a psychologist. So I wrote a spec script for that show, but I didn't know that show had already quit. I didn't know that was their final season when I wrote it. And when I sent it in, I just sent it by mail, and Glenn and Les Charles, who were running the show, read my script. It just wouldn't happen today like that. Today, the legal departments of every studio block that. It's so much harder as an up-and-coming writer now to connect the people who can really help you. They've made it harder and harder for legal reasons, not for never creative reasons, just for legal reasons, for business reasons. And so I got my script into Glenn and Les Charles, who had just finished doing the Bob Newhart show. They liked it, said they would have shot it had I gotten it to them earlier. They liked it that much. And then hired me for Taxi. And at this point, I had no experience. I had never written anything but that one script. The way I wrote that spec script was that I asked for I wrote to them, again, you can't do this anymore, but I wrote to them and said, can I have one of your favorite scripts, and just, I'm a student, I'd like to study it. So they sent me an episode of the Bob Newhart Show. They sent me a script. No, they sent me a script of the Rhoda. That was another one of Jim's shows, of Rhoda. They sent me a Rhoda script, a complete Rhoda script. It was 50 pages long with the act break exactly at page 25, which is just coincidental, because your act break in a half-hour comedy does not have to be exactly in the middle of your script. And the script does not have to be 50 pages. It can be less. Sometimes it's more. Usually it's less. And I had no idea what to do with the script or how to write a spec script, so I figured, well, the safest thing is write it exactly the way they did. So I wrote a script that was exactly 50 pages long, had the act break exactly at page 25, had a plot and a subplot, which is all they did. They didn't do A, B, and C stories in those days. They just did, in fact, Jim Brooks only does an A story, the plot. He's not such a fan of subplots in half hours, because he doesn't think there's enough time to tell a good story if you're trying to do 3 good stories, you know. So, you know, that I like that philosophy, actually, but not anymore. In today's market, that wouldn't work. Everybody wants at least 3 plot and at least 2 subplots.
Right, you have to do your ABC and C, right?
Yeah, right. So, anyhow.
Well, can I stop you next to something interesting here? We're jumping ahead, but the story you just told about your spec going in, isn't that how Sam Simon also ended up working on Taxi?
Sam Simon, yeah, I think so.
He also, which is interesting to me because, as you said, even then, I mean, today it wouldn't happen, but even then, it's rare that you basically send in a spec cold, and they were like, "You're great, let's hire you." Yeah,
that's unusual.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how unusual it was at the time that it happened to me. Also, so a lot of unusual things happened early in my career. So this is the first thing and I know I'm not talking about the Simpsons, but all this this all gets to the Simpsons, because this is how I got there, to make the statement I made that made the Simpsons start. Okay. So I got in on Taxi. They hired me to write a script, my first script. I had to pitch many scripts. So they picked the script, and I wrote it. And it won the Writers Guild Award that year. My very first script I ever wrote professionally. And my second script that I'd ever written, ever, won the Writers Guild Award that year, and which is, for people who don't know what the Writers Guild Award is, it's the equivalent of an Emmy, but it's voted on only by writers rather than by a group of writers who are at large within the community. And this is voted strictly by the union, the Writers Guild, and they select the best script of the year, and they selected me as my script is the best script of the year.
It means it's a really good piece of writing.
It must have been awfully good, yeah. So, but I still didn't understand any of this stuff. I was new to it. I did study creative writing, but not television. I didn't know anything about television. So when I got there, I was really nervous all the time, because I didn't understand about the rewriting. So this script that won the Writers Guild Award got almost totally rewritten. You go, what? How can you win the Writers Guild Award and your peers tell you you've written the best script of the year, and then the showrunners and the writing staff take it, and before it even gets to the table for the very first reading by the actors, they've changed almost everything. And you know, why? Why would they do that? But they did.
That's TV, right?
It's TV. You know what the main problem was? My script had more heart and less laughs. And I think the Guild loved that. But I think the show, mainly Jim Brooks, I believe, said it doesn't have enough laughs. And so the changes they made were to make it funnier. But to make it funnier, they ripped the heart out of it. And so it became an episode that I've told. It was shot, and it's just one of the many Taxi episodes for which I still get residuals after about 35 years or something. Long time.
More, right?
More, maybe, yeah. Sure.
I'll tell you. Oh, Taxi ended in '83. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. Yeah.
So about 40 years.
Yeah, gosh. I still get residuals. I recently got a check from Serbia. It didn't come directly from Serbia. It came through the Writers Guild for taxis that they sold to Serbian television.
You know, it always amazes me that somebody is keeping track and accounting this stuff.
Yeah,
Serbia,
isn't that?
They send a check, you know?
I know. I get a check out of the blue, and it says Serbia on it, you know, Serbian television. I went, that's cool. Well, the check came from the Writers Guild,
Okay.
so it was good.
Yeah, they send the money to the guild cuts you a check. Yeah. So this is where you met Brooks.
On Taxi. So I met Brooks, and I was in awe of him because I loved all of his shows, everything he did for MTM, for the Maritime War Company. I loved all his work, and then the first time I saw him, I said something that made him laugh, and I heard him do the the famous laugh that's on all his shows, and he did that, and I just said, this can't be happening to me. I just graduated. I write a spec script. They hire me on the best show on television. By that time, Taxi was considered the best half hour on television. I'm on the best show on television with these guys who were legends, and it seemed so easy. I just thought, gosh, this business that they tell you is such a struggle is really a snap. You just got to ignore all the warnings. But I'm telling you now, I won the super lotto. It's like. It just doesn't happen that way. And so anyhow, so I met Jim. Jim liked me very much. I started out as this freelance writer, ended up with a staff position within weeks. Then became a story editor on the show within weeks from that time. And then an agent came to me. I didn't have an agent. An agent came to me and said, well, I'd like to represent you, who's one of the best agents in the city, Bob Broder. I can mention his name. He was the top sitcom.
Used to be Broder, Sherwin, Up
Yeah,
and Webb, right?
he had several partners. And so Jim loved me. Jim and I got along so well. He considered me his protege, and I thought of him my primary mentor. The Glenn and Les Charles were really good to me too and taught me a whole lot. The main thing they taught me that I didn't know was how to place more jokes into a half hour. They always complained my scripts had more, they didn't call it substance, but I call it substance, and not enough laughter. I still think today that people prefer substance. As long as you give them enough laughs, they'd rather have a story they care about than more laughs. But that's my philosophy. But anyhow, they taught me how to put more laughs in without it getting awkward, and taught me how to write the jokes for those shows, for their shows. They didn't like sit me down and teach me. I learned by example, and so I showed up at the first table reading, and I saw how they reread my script that was so different, but all their added jokes got laughs. But it changed, the very ending, the climax and the ending were changed to get a really big laugh, which they got, but took the heart out of the show. You know, just, anyhow.
Was Sam Simon there when you got
No,
there?
Sam Simon came a year later.
Okay, and I've read that he kind of did something similar. He sent us back in and they made it, and that's also crazy rare.
Sam won the lottery as well. Yeah, Sam came in really quickly. I think I was only about 25, and he was younger than I was. And I didn't like giving up the honor of being the youngest guy on the show. You know, 25. Who'd you hire? This guy, 24. He won't be any good. But then Sam came in. He was wonderful. Sam was a terrific half-hour sitcom writer. Terrific.
Tell me about him as a person, just because obviously he's someone I can't interview.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Sam Simon was enormously talented and prolific and quick and all the things you need in television. But Sam didn't have a way with people. Nobody likes Sam. I hate to say that because the man's deceased, but nobody likes Sam except me. By the way, I did like Sam from day one. I just thought he was a funny, quirky guy, but he was mean to everybody. He really was. Mostly it was done, I think, out of unintentional, thoughtless acts, not out of meanness. He wasn't really a mean man, but everybody thought he was, and everybody disliked Sam.
Was it just insecurity, maybe? I mean,
it might have been insecurity. He was insecure. We're all insecure, but he was more insecure, I think. I think he was worried if he would fit in. So Sam, I would say, latched on to me because I liked him so much. And I was now, by that time I wasn't the showrunner yet, but I was next in line to be the next showrunner. And Glenn and Les were already planning to leave to do Cheers, so I was looking like the next guy. So I always wondered about Sam. Sam was so flattering to me and so good to me, and everybody else hated him. And so I thought, well, is it because he's really trying to get ahead, or does he really like me? I never really figured that out, but I liked Sam. And I think he was a good guy who just had terrible social skills. I don't know how that happened. I knew him really well. He never, in private, said hurtful things about people. He wasn't a bad guy. He was a decent guy, but he just had terrible people skills.
I read a quote from him. I wonder if you agree with it. He was talking about. Oh, you got the sound.
Just a quick little adjustment one more time.
Okay.
Yeah.
The quote I read from him, and I wonder if you have heard it and if you agree or disagree. He was talking, and this was later in life, but he said there was something about. He said every show I ever worked on. He goes something about me. He goes, I became a monster by the end, and he goes, I couldn't help it.
Yes, I believe that's true. And the fact that he knew that and would say it publicly said something good about Sam. He really didn't want to be a monster. Yeah.
Can I stop you 1 second? I just gave you the quote, but I'm never to be heard.
Right,
you can frame it, because I'm very interested in your take on this.
Yes. Okay. So Sam Simon was interesting and probably very insecure, and because of that, he just seemed to make enemies. And he once said something to the effect that no matter what the show was, when he started on it, by the end he was the show's monster. He was the person everybody said, "Oh, Sam, we don't want to talk to Sam. We don't want to deal with Sam." And it hurt his career at that point. It was just like he was solid with us because Jim knew how good he was. Jim Brooks knew how good Sam was. I knew how good Sam was. Everybody on the show knew how good Sam was. And to me, that's always the most important thing. When you're writing a show, and they're very hard to write under the time frame, you need really smart, fast, funny writers. And Sam was that. And so I liked him, by the way. He and I used to go to double date and go to concerts together. He and I took, one time I took Mary Lou Henner as my date with Sam Simon. Huh?
Well done, Ken.
Oh, yeah, thank you. With Sam Simon and his ex-girlfriend, who I won't mention, but we went to see the Go-Go's at the Hollywood Bowl with a limousine, and Sam was fun, and everybody liked Sam in our group. You know, everybody had a good time. We had some drinks. We watched the Go-Go's, not because the Go-Go's were the greatest performers in the world, but they were fun. The Go-Go's were fun, and we just had a fun night. And so I'm saying Sam was fun when he was my friend, and eventually became my partner, because when I was given the job of running the show, became the showrunner, Sam was my right-hand person.
We're talking Taxi, right?
Yes, on Taxi.
Can you say that again, but with...
Sure. When I became the showrunner of Taxi, the most important person I had for me on staff was Sam Simon. So Sam and I continued to get along so great, and we did things like going to a concert, like going to a sporting event, like I'd go over to his house to work sometimes, and he would work at my place. And I'm telling you, Sam was my best friend. And people don't say, how could you have ever been a best friend with Sam Simon? And I'm telling you, he had a good heart. Somebody didn't teach him how to deal with human beings. He was great with animals. He was great with dogs in particular. And I don't know if you know this, but when Sam Simon died, because of the Simpsons, Sam had about $200 to $300 million. And he donated all to create a dog foundation to rescue dogs, to train them for veterans who needed companions. Now, that's a good guy. You know, how can you say that's a bad guy? But he had no people to leave the money to. That's the interesting thing. He didn't leave any money to people because he just couldn't get along with people.
It's interesting. I never met Sam Simon, obviously, but I know him a little bit just from these long interviews he used to do on the Howard Stern show.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so I did know about the animal thing because he used to talk about that all the time. You know, his love for animals and all that stuff. And he used to talk about his divorce from Jennifer Tilly, right?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
That was, yeah. But he had no kids. He had no... Right?
He had no kids. He had a sign on the urn of one of his dogs that had died, and he had cremated the dog, and he kept the urn on his I think on his mantle. I don't remember exactly, and it said, "Good friend, bad dog." even that was, he was even funny in talking about death. And Sam was my best friend for about 4 or 5 years. And what happened was we actually became partners because we got along so well. And it's so much easier to write with a partner than writing solo when you're trying to write quickly, which is what television is so much about. And Sam and I got along so well. I thought he'd be my best friend for life. I really did. And then this strange thing happened. When Taxi was canceled, under very strange circumstances, which I won't go into because it's taking me further from talking about The Simpsons, that they hired, Sam and I we did our own show called Shaping Up, which had Leslie Nielsen as a star of it. Here's a weird thing, I gotta tell this, even though this isn't about it. We hired...
Just so you know, this is fascinating to me because I've interviewed lots of people that know about Sam or sort of knew him, but you knew him really well.
Oh, really
so,
well.
yeah, I'm all ears. Continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I lost track of him.
Shaping Up.
Oh, yeah. So Sam and I created Shaping Up together. And again, we had a great time doing that. But everybody was afraid of Sam, and everybody didn't like Sam, but it's strange. Anyhow, so we created the show with Leslie Nielsen as a star, and we were looking for the co-star to be equal with him. That would be, because he played a rough, kind of silly, funny guy. We needed the center of the show. And can we cut for a minute?
Yeah,
just break for a minute? Because I can't think of it. No, I can't think of his name. I didn't want to do that. I don't want to be...
Do you want me to look? Should I look up?
No, you won't see it because this is the strange part about it.
Shaping Up didn't...
Unless you look up the first pilot. We did 2 pilots.
Okay, let me see if... Hold on. You're looking for another cast member's name?
He's a very famous name, too. You'll know him as soon as I say, but I can't think of his name.
Leslie, let's see here. Leslie.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Oh, you got it?
Tim Robbins.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So you want me to, where do I pick up?
Shaping Up, Sam.
Okay, so Sam and I created Shaping Up when Taxi ended, and we got Leslie Nielsen, who we loved, and we needed somebody who was less broad, funny, and more centered, and we found Tim Robbins, who was a courier at the time. He wasn't even in the business yet. And so Tim Robbins auditioned for us because he loved Taxi. He said, I don't want to do TV, I want to be a movie star, but I really love Taxi and I trust you guys, so I will audition for your show. He auditioned, we loved what he did, we gave him the part, we shot a pilot that cost us, in those days they weren't expensive, they were only about $500,000. Now they're much more expensive. But we shot at $500,000, we shot a pilot with Tim Robbins, and the studio, and I won't mention names of people, it's not necessary, but Paramount Studios executives and president, and ABC Studios, with their president, came to us and said, this Tim guy is a lox, he can't act, he's no good, you gotta get rid of him. And he was the best actor on the set. We were saying that already. We were saying, he has these subtleties, he plays every moment, he does it all, he never goes for the big joke, heightening the joke or anything. He's wonderful. And they said, here's what we'll do. You have a choice. You either fire Tim Robbins or fire the whole show, everybody on your show. So you can either fire one person or 100 people. That's your choice, Ken. Because they knew, because I said, I'm not going to fire Tim Robbins. And then they said, well, if you don't fire Tim, you fired everybody else in the show because we're going to cancel your pilot right now. And so I fired Tim Robbins, and Tim Robbins hates me to this day, I believe, because it was Christmas. He was going home, having landed the lead in the show, and I told him just before he caught his plane, you don't have a show, you're fired. And I told him, you were the best thing in the show. I was really nice to him. I said, you're the best thing in the show. You're a wonderful actor. You're going to do better things than this. Everything I said turned out to be right. But he still was really angry, hurt and angry.
I was going to say two things. One, you really didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, and it worked out fine for him.
Oh, it worked out great for him, yeah. So as you know, Tim Robbins won an Oscar about 3 years later for a supporting role in a movie that I can't think of the title. But 3 years later, he won as Best Supporting Actor. This is the guy they tell me is the Locks. I used to hate when business affairs people would get involved in my shows because they know how business, they're great. Without them, we couldn't do shows. But they do not know talent. They usually, almost always, they do not know talent. They always want to get involved in that part. To tell me Tim Robbins had to go, they had to shoot a new pilot. So we had to spend $500,000 more to get rid of the best guy on the set, Tim Robbins. That's amazing.
Well, you know, nothing about this business makes any sense, right? The fact that anything works is astounding.
Well, here's the second thing about the show, and then I'll move on.
Sure.
Because Sam and I were outraged about that. And then we got a guy who we've never seen again ever because he couldn't.
Is that Michael Fontaine? Is that who I just saw?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is he working anywhere?
I've never heard of him.
Yeah, I don't think he ever did anything after that. Yeah. But we gave up Tim Robbins for somebody who never really jailed on our show or I think any other show. So.
Yeah, I mean, his last acting credit was 1988. And he has a total of 5 acting credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but here's what happened. The president of the network, Lou Ehrlich, who I will mention, loved him and hated Tim Robbins. So when we switched him, he was delighted with the show. He was totally supportive of the show. And the network gave money to Paramount. I think they probably split the cost to shoot another $500,000 pilot. So our pilot ended up costing $1 million. Today they cost $1 million anyhow, but back then they didn't. I couldn't believe that's the choice they wanted to make. I was stunned, and I was ready to quit the business. I didn't even want to have anything to do with this stuff. And here's the second weird thing they did. They also said, we'd like you to get rid of oh gosh, what's her name? Sean Weatherly. Okay. They said, because Sean Weatherly isn't sexy enough. And then we said, this is again the same people who made us get rid of Tim Robbins.
Right.
I said, Sean Weatherly was Miss Universe 2 years ago. Miss Universe 2 years ago. You guys own the rights to Miss Universe, so what are you going to tell me now? You told me your Miss Universe isn't sexy enough for my show, and they backed off on that one. So she stayed on the show, and she was good. Sean Weatherly played the part that we needed very well. She was good. She was pretty. We didn't play up the sexy part anyhow, but the sexy one was Tilly, Jennifer Tilly. Mm-hmm. Jennifer Tilly was the sexy one, and we didn't need 2 sexy women in this thing. We needed a sexy one and the wholesome one. So they were so wrong about every choice they wanted. So we went ahead with that, and Sam ended up marrying her, Jennifer Tilly.
I was going to say, that's where Sam met her?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where Sam met her?
Yeah, that's where Sam met her. We auditioned her, and we auditioned her.
Tell me the story using her name
Okay,
and Sam's name.
Okay. So when we put the show together, one of the women we auditioned for a sexy part on our show was a very sexy young actress named Jennifer Tilly. And she auditioned, and we kept her longer to have her read parts and do all kinds of things. We knew immediately she's the one we wanted. And when she left the room, I don't know if Sam told us, or maybe I shouldn't tell it, but I'm going to tell you anyhow. He said, I'm going to marry that woman. He said that, and I said, yeah, I thought he was kidding me, and I said, okay, well, that's great. You know, it's not great for producers, our executive producers, creators, to start dating their ingenues. It doesn't look good. It's not good for the show. I don't think it's a good idea to start flirting with her or anything. Let's just stay out of that. Shortly after that, Leslie Nielsen and Sean Weatherly came to me and said, Sam is always on the set. He's always flirting with Jennifer Tilly. He's always giving her helpful lines and stuff. And it's demoralizing for the rest of us. And it wasn't good. It was just like I said, it wasn't good, except it turned out great for Sam because he did marry her. He ended up marrying Jennifer Tilly, and it was the happiest time in his life. And I'm still friends with him, so I saw that. He just became really happy. He loved being married to Jennifer Tilly. I was around while he was still dating her, not when he married her. When he married her, he didn't invite me to the wedding because by then we'd had our falling out, which separated us. What happened was our show didn't go, though it was number 10 in the Nielsen's when it was canceled. What happened was Lou Ehrlich, who was president of ABC, said, although you're number 10 in the Nielsen's, I do not believe in sitcoms anymore. I think the future of comedy and TV is going to be these action comedies like The A-Team. So we're canceling all of our comedy except Who's the Boss because we developed that ourselves within ABC. I was stunned again by the business. I'm telling you all the bad stuff, lots of bad stuff in the business. We're number 10 in the Nielsen's. Rarely does anybody get to be number 10 in the Nielsen's. We had a good lead-in, but still, gosh, they canceled us and canceled everything. So it wasn't just an excuse to cancel us. Canceled all their half-hour comedies except for Who's the Boss. Well, what happened? Who's the Boss went through the roof because people were starved for comedy. Cheers, which was doing, by that time, no, I'm not remembering this well. Oh no, it wasn't Cheers by then. Cheers comes later. Yeah. I hope you're going to edit this part out.
Of course, we got to do
it. Okay. That the Cosby Show came out. People just jumped on the Cosby Show. Where's our comedies? You know, they loved it. They loved that Bill would just mug and wink and just be funny and goofy all the time, because they were dying for their half hours that Lou Ehrlich took away from them. So ABC, at the time I came to them with Shaping Up, my show, they canceled Shaping Up, they canceled all their half hours, and then they canceled Lou Ehrlich. He lost his job, and the network went from first place to last place overnight. They were first place network. That decision to eliminate all half-hour comedies drove them into third place.
I mean, it's crazy, but you know, these things happen, right? But you survived. You did well.
Oh, I did well because at the time, then Glenn Charles came to me and said, Ken, come run Cheers. Now, Cheers was the top show on television. So instead of being down licking my wounds, I had the best show on television again.
And now I have to thank you because I'm pretty sure I've seen every episode of Cheers that was ever made.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love the show.
Yeah,
It was one of the ones that my parents never missed, and yeah.
You know, the thing about Cheers was, it truly was the place that you wanted to be, where everybody knows your name. It was truly, everybody wished they had it didn't have to be a bar, but everybody wished they had those friends, that situation. People just fell in love with that environment.
It was a great group, it was a great cast. And then later on with Kirstie Alley and Kelsey Grammer and Dan Hedaya, who I think I was introduced to Dan Hedaya by Cheers, and every time I see him in a movie and all the years afterwards, I always love seeing him. It feels right?
I love him. He's really an interesting guy too.
But I want to take you back to Ohio.
Sure.
Because I want to ask you, we've talked about Jim Brooks, and when I'm talking to you, and there were two other people there that are important to this story, right?
Yeah.
We talk about Jerry.
Jerry Belson.
Yes.
Jerry Belson was the funniest man I ever worked with. By far. The quickest, funniest man I ever worked with, and also the most melancholy guy I ever worked with. So he was great with jokes, but he'd be down like this, and then we're struggling for the joke, and then he'd say, well, blah, 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 blah. And you go, oh, that's great. He goes right into the script. And then Jerry would go back to this, But Jerry had some physical problems at the time. I think he had some pains that he didn't talk a lot about. And he was just kind of a melancholy personality. And a lot of times I find the funniest people are the most pained people for some reason. I think maybe comedy, comedy does assuage our pain and our misery. That's why comedy always does so well, even when it's simple Laughter does work. It does make you feel better. It's healthy. So Jerry Belson was the funniest guy. Jerry didn't spend a whole time with story. Jerry was there to make the shows funny, and we knew when we went into a rewrite with Jerry that we could just concentrate on what wasn't working with the episode, and Jerry would give us the jokes we needed. Just amazing man.
What a great utility player to have, right? Somebody who...
Absolutely. You know, it's like invaluable in a half-hour comedy to have that guy, invaluable. The other person who was almost as good, or maybe as good in a different way, was oh gosh, I hope we take all the ums out.
Don't worry, we will.
Okay.
Who do you think maybe I can help you?
You know, Christopher Lloyd's father was David Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
David Lloyd. You know what? I knew David Lloyd forever, but Christopher became so big that I had always think Christopher. The name I keep thinking Christopher Lloyd. I'm trying to search for David. I knew David really well, but I kept.
Chris became a huge star.
Yeah, he became a name, and Christopher Lloyd was also our Reverend Jim character in Taxi. They both shared the same name, and they both brought up, and they both. I just don't think David just slipped out of my brain. It's always Christopher.
Right, because Chris ended up, was on Modern Family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
He created Modern Family.
Right.
Yeah.
So and then there's I'm sorry, I just forgot. Now it's my turn to forget. I forgot the woman's name who was there with you. I know
Heidi Perlman.
Heidi. Tell me about Heidi Perlman.
Okay, so Heidi Perlman was one of the very important people on Cheers. She never wrote for Taxi. I never worked with her up to that point, but I liked her a lot. She was funny too. I wasn't sure how well she did story because I didn't work with her, but everybody loved Heidi, and I trusted their opinion. Glenn Les Charles, whose opinion I trust very much, said Heidi was very important to the success of Cheers in the early days when I wasn't. I was there for the pilot on Cheers. I helped write the pilot and shoot the pilot and all that stuff. But then I went back to Taxi because I was running Taxi. In fact, at one point, we shot 2 episodes of a Cheers and a Taxi on stages right next to each other, and they were both mine. A Cheers and a Taxi, the 2 best shows on television. They were both mine. In both shows, the lead character cried, which you never do in half hours. And both episodes, both production companies said they wanted me to submit it for best show, for my best writing, and they wanted to submit it for best show, and for their best show entry. And I chose the Taxi because I was running Taxi. Obviously, I can't choose Cheers if I'm running Taxi. I chose Taxi, and I did get a nomination that year for the episode I submitted, but the Cheers episode, the Cheers pilot won. But Glenn Les said, and others have said since, I think, that one of the episodes I wrote, the one where Coach was crying, at the same one where Jim was crying, those were the 2 that they wanted to submit, and believe the Coach crying might have won the Emmy. You know, at the end, it's like hindsight.
But me of Coach. You guys lost him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away during the series.
During the series, right? I remember that. Yeah. So in Ojai, you guys, let's go back to Ojai.
Yeah. That's where it starts. That's where it starts.
So you guys settle on this variety show, right? That's going to be the way you go forward. So what happens next? How does Sam end up on this show?
So we decided to do a variety show with Tracy Ullman, and casting was very difficult. We couldn't find the guy to play opposite her, the male lead. We found Dan Castellaneta in Chicago. We went everywhere. We went to New York, Chicago, L.A. We're looking at all these great people, but we couldn't find anybody who just had chemistry with Tracy for all these sketches and had the versatility to be able to play many characters, broad and some very authentic, and different styles, and could also sing and dance. Tough order, and we ended up going to New York, found a guy we loved, brought him back. Tracy hated him. She hated him. I won't mention his name.
Okay.
And within that same week, Jim Brooks didn't like their interaction, fired the guy. So the guy, we went to New York, made the guy's life by saying, "You're going to be the star of a new show, one of the stars." He gives up his apartment in New York. It isn't funny at all. Again, you laugh at the pain sometimes just to assuage.
Yeah.
But
Is he? I know you don't want to name him. Is he someone I would know?
no.
Okay. Okay.
So he came to L.A. He did the first week. Got fired at the end of the first week. Now had no place to go, no apartment. No, I guess he went back to New York to find an apartment. But you ruin a lot of lives in show business. It's just it's sad sometimes the people you have to fire, who it really hurts. I mean, Tim Robbins rebounded enormously. I feel good about that one. But some of these never were seen again after you let them go, and it's hard.
Well, and by the way, I'm not
Back
really
to
looking
Ojai.
at my phone. I'm keeping track of the time.
I know, we're running out of time, right?
Well, no. I mean, look, it's 1:59, but I can keep going for a while if you can.
Well, let me get to the start of the
Please.
Simpsons. Yes.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So now you know the players who were there. Heidi Perlman, Jerry Belson. You know that they all were talented people. Myself and Jim Brooks and Richard Sky was there as an advisor.
My next question was, tell me about Richard Sakai.
Yeah.
He's a name that keeps coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard Sakai started as Jim Brooks's gopher. Was so talented as a producer and helping out when needed. Went up to associate producer of I believe I don't know, whatever. He became an associate producer of one of Jim's shows, and then by the time I became a producer of Taxi, Richard was the associate producer of Taxi, and he was wonderful. Whenever he needed something, you go to Richard. He always got it done. He always could make things happen. Wonderful producer. So when we were doing the Tracy Ullman show, Jim wanted him along too. Now he wasn't contributing to the creative thought, but here's the irony. Ultimately, what he did made the Simpsons happen.
What Richard did.
What Richard did that and I did together made the Simpsons happen. Here's what
I want to
happened.
hear the story. Yeah.
All right, here's the good part. Here's the part that you called me in for.
Okay, good.
This is where I
remember
get the big bucks for this one, right?
And remember to use everybody's name so we know who we're talking about.
Okay. So Richard Sakai, maybe a year earlier for my birthday, gave me a cartoon that he bought at an auction or something that was called Life in Hell. And the Life in Hell cartoon was, I think it was 4 boxes that were printed in throwaway newspapers, advertisement newspapers, real estate newspapers. And it was how Matt Groening made his living. Life in Hell was Matt's creation. So Richard gave me this cartoon I'd never seen before, and I don't remember what the joke was in that particular cartoon because I don't have it anymore. I don't know where it is. It would be very valuable, but I don't know where it is.
Lost to history.
Lost to history. I probably tore it to bits because of things that happened later. But anyhow, no, I didn't do that. But anyhow, I loved it. I said, "Gosh, these characters are so weird looking. They're drawn poorly. they all have overbites for no apparent reason." It's just so weird. This is what we need for our bumpers. And now I'm going to explain what a bumper is.
Well, can I stop and ask you a question here? When did you guys decide you needed bumpers? From the beginning of the show, or the show was up and running for a while before you guys came to this?
Oh no, we decided we needed bumpers while we were in this little room in Ojai.
So from ground zero.
Ground zero, we knew we needed bumpers. We decided that the sketches were when one bumped into the next, one ended and another one started. We weren't sure people would always know it wasn't more of the same sketch, that it wasn't just another scene of the same sketch, and we didn't want to create that confusion. So we decided we need a bumper between every sketch that would be clear that that's telling you this is a divider, this is one sketch and this is another sketch. This is how Matt became a billionaire. So
Can I ask you a quick question there?
Yeah.
Were you guys thinking of Monty Python? Because they used to do that, right?
Yes, we did think about Monty Python. Yes.
Okay.
So in fact, I believe our first thought was to steal an idea of theirs, was the talking bear. I think they did the talking bear. I believe they did. They did talking things. So
Can you give me that in a soundbite with, like, we did think of Monty Python as
okay, sure. So when we're thinking of models for bumpers, yes, we thought of Monty Python because it was a show we all admired and it had big laughs. And it's very important that you separate the sketches with something that says this sketch is over, this thing that's starting is new. And so our first thought was kind of a Monty Python-ish thing in that we said, let's have a talking bear. And I don't know who said it should be a bear. Let's have a talking bear after each sketch comes out and says, I didn't really like that one, or will come out and say, that was a good one, or you guys, why don't you do more like this? The bear would be very critical of us, the writers, and then say, well, what the hell? Or I don't think on Fox we said what the hell, but we'd say, you know, anyhow, that was the whole point of the bumper was separation. At some point when we were telling people after this, now we leave, and I guess we called our spouses or whatever and said, well, you got this thing and we're going to use a talking bear. None of our spouses liked the talking bear. Nobody seemed to like the talking bear. We even came back and said, what were we thinking with a talking bear? That's too goofy. So I don't know how I thought of this. I don't know why it came to me, but I thought about that cartoon of Matt Groening's that Richard Sky had given me. I said, what if we put like some little piece like that, some very, very, very short, one joke, animated cartoon in there. And I have the guy, Matt Groening, I think, if you guys look at his Life in Hell, you'll say this is a winner. I thought, God, would it be great to have Life in Hell bumpers. So.
And let me just ask you didn't know Matt, right?
No, I didn't know
You
Matt.
just had seen the artwork.
I'd only seen the artwork. I didn't know much about Matt, only that Richard had given me his artwork. And then I'd seen other of his art. After that, because I knew that he did that sort of thing, I started looking at them. They were always funny. They always had one joke in them, you know, punchline at the end. And they were perfect for what I was thinking of, for the bumpers. Everybody agreed. This was the one thing we agreed on instantly. Everybody said, that's a wonderful idea. And I think, I'm not sure, some weren't familiar with Matt. I don't think Heidi knew of Matt. I don't think Jerry knew of Matt. I'm not sure if Jim did. I think Jim did. I know Richard did, and I did. And so we gave him the drawings and examples and everything. And this is still during the 3 days we're there in Ojai. And we said, let's get in touch with Matt Groening and see if he wants to do bumpers, because they're just going to be, we're going to tell him we want one joke, and we want you to take 3 to 4 little segments to tell that one joke. And you're going to have a total of 1 minute on our show. And I thought, he might not want to do that because he's an artist, you know, and maybe he doesn't even care about the money. So we went to him, and he loved the money instantly. Oh, sure, we'll do it.
Wait a minute, tell me about that. Do you remember, when did you first meet Matt Groening? Tell me about that.
Gosh, I don't remember when I first met him. It was after we were going into production. All this was a guy I'd never seen, didn't know anything about. But here's the part that gets the iffy part. There's a good couple twists in the story that I'm starting to tell. So we all agree Matt is a good guy to approach. Heidi Perlman then got the idea, okay, these bumpers with cartoons are good. She had a favorite cartoonist, and she said, I'd rather have this woman. And this woman did a psychiatrist who spoke with the click language that they use in Africa somewhere. It was just a copy of that. It wasn't authentic. And she was a psychiatrist, and Heidi wanted that.
M.K. Brown?
Yes, M.K. Brown. I forgot her name. Thank you.
Now you have it.
You did all your homework, man.
I did, yeah. So you could say it with her name in it if you want.
Okay, yeah, so Heidi loved M.K. Brown, a woman who created a cartoon that was really funny and different and odd, really, really odd. Didn't seem to be as entertaining and funny to me as it was quirky. And we wanted funny. And so Matt just seemed funnier. So what happened was we compromised with Heidi, because while we were still there, we had decided Heidi would do most of the show running because I had another deal to do my movie, which is the whole reason I was there in the first place. So I didn't want to spend 5 to 7 days a week on the Tracy Ullman show. I wanted to have time off. So Heidi agreed she would be the primary showrunner. We would all show run on the days we could come, when we'd all be honest and helpful and come when we can, including Jerry Belson had a partial deal like mine. He could come and go. And Heidi was the only one who was full-time going to have to run the show. And she was okay with that because she had the fewest credits and she wanted this credit. And so when we started pre-production, now we'd all agreed, okay, Matt Groening and Brown.
Right, Matt. But let me stop you there for 1 second. Is this story true, do you know, about when Groening first went to meet with Brooks? And I guess he didn't, it's unclear. Some people say he didn't want to give up.
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
That's all true.
Okay,
that's all true.
And the fact that he made up the family on
Yes,
the fly?
that's all true.
Tell me everything.
Okay, so let me tell you. No, that's
Yeah.
good. I mean, you're directing this. You need to make sure it's going ahead straight. So.
No, I want your story. That's why.
Okay, so so Heidi Perlman agreed she would, her artist could do half, and our artist could do half, and we considered them artists primarily. And then Matt told us he's not an artist; he can't draw. He's a writer, a comedy writer, which made sense because his stuff was funnier and not drawn well. They're drawn better now. They're still the same characters, but if you look at the early ones, the very early ones, and the latest ones, there is a difference.
Well,
Slight.
I've read a thing where Matt says his drawings, his technique really didn't improve after 8th grade.
Oh, yeah. It's probably true because he only drew to tell his jokes. He didn't draw for the drawings. And at the time, the timing was perfect. There was a time when America was ready for a show that didn't look like it was so polished in terms of the animation. They loved the oddness and the kind of roughness of the drawings. So we loved Matt for that reason. He was a bohemian. He was an outsider and an off the wall kind of guy. And so I liked it. I hadn't met him yet. All this time I haven't met him. Richard Sakai was talking to him. I'm not even sure if Jim had met him yet, but Richard was dealing with him. So we go into we're going into pre-production, and we're not getting anything from Matt. He's not turning anything in. And we're getting stuff from, I'm sorry, Brown. I keep forgetting her initials because she has an initial. MK Brown. She's turning in stuff, and Matt's not turning in anything. So I said to Richard, what's going on with Matt? He said, well, he doesn't want to give up any of the merchandising in Life in Hell because he makes his living off of Life in Hell. He doesn't want to mess with it. He's keeping that to himself. He's not going to share it with anybody. So Paramount, not Paramount, I'm sorry, this is Fox. Mm-hmm. Fox, 20th Century Fox said to him, well, if you won't give us the rights, then it's over. Okay, he was a nobody at the time in terms of the way they judge talent. And so they let him go. And so one day I said to Richard, when we were getting him, I said, when is he going to submit something? And then Richard told me. Richard was always the guy who handled all the business. Richard, they couldn't make a deal with him, so he's gone. I said, this is a guy who's starving, making a living off of these little drawings. They couldn't make a deal with him? What happened? Then Richard told me he wouldn't give up anything from Life in Hell. And I said, I don't care about Life in Hell. I cared about his sense of humor. He must have some other characters he draws. He must have some other characters lying around. Let's just have him bring in any characters and his sense of humor. This is what saved Matt Groening and made him a billionaire, because Richard did do that. He went back to Fox, said, we're willing to take what Matt will sell to us. We'll allow merchandising shared. So he went into Jim's office, maybe the next day or days later, I don't know. But he went to Jim's office, and he may or may not, because I was not in the office, may or may not have drawn the characters right in the office. He says he did, or people say he did. Others say he drew it and brought it in. I don't know that part of it. All I know is within days, he gave Jim the Simpsons, and they were modeled after his own family. So, I mean, I believe his father's name is Homer. And Jim loved the characters. Then they sent them to us. We were, we were in pre-production, so working on scripts and stuff. And we all loved it. Well, these characters are better than I thought than the Life in Hell. great call. I was so pleased with myself. And nobody ever patted me on the back. I did. Yeah, I'm doing it again now. Nobody ever said anything. Ken, you made a couple key decisions here that are going to be really good for the show. And then it turns out it was. Matt did it for bumpers, and Miss Brown also did bumpers, and they both worked. They both worked.
Let me ask you right there though. Were you involved in? You guys got MK Brown. You got Matt. So how does Klasky Chupo come into this?
That's Richard Sakai.
Okay.
Richard Sakai found them. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
You know, yeah. Chupo.
Gabor. His name's Gabor, and she's Arlene Klasky.
Arlene. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's a tough name. It took me a while to learn. It's Klasky Chupo Studios.
Klasky Chupo.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't remember. This was a long time ago for me. You know,
Don't worry. I'm just researching it now. So
all right.
That's, yeah.
The show's been on the air for over 30 years, so I don't remember all the names and details. But yes, when Richards found the animators, found these people who were wonderful, and see, to have a hit show, you have to have some magic, and the magic is that everything comes together. And there's so many ways it could not come together, but it did. We almost lost Matt, but we didn't. Richard found the best animators for our show at the time, almost by accident. I mean, he was trying to get somebody who would do it cheap enough and quickly enough, and just pick the right people. And then Matt started turning in his stuff, and it was funny. And Ms. Brown started turning her stuff, MK Brown?
Mm-hmm. You've learned it.
Okay. So MK Brown, by the end of the session, I'm going to know a lot about the Simpsons. MK Brown turned in her stuff, and it was good too. But his made us laugh, and hers didn't. And we finally went to Heidi and said, Heidi, we want to go with Matt, totally. We want to just make it Matt. And we did. And at the time, Albert Brooks, who's a friend of Jim Brooks, told Jim, you got to get rid of that Simpsons thing in your show. It's the worst part of your show. Really. And we went, what are you talking about? We think it's wonderful. I think the rest is kind of history, because the show went on to be a major success instantly, right from the start. And here's something I learned just shortly ago, which is interesting. They tested the show very extensively when they had the first episodes of The Simpsons. When it's about, I just did a jump, didn't I? So the Tracy Ullman Show.
Yeah, hold on. Let me stop.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
I
help
have a
me.
question. Is it true that so you guys were using these basically as interstitials, right?
Yes.
They're bumpers. You're using MK Brown and Simpsons, and then just Simpsons.
Yeah.
I read somewhere, and you read these things. I don't know if they're true or not, so that's why I'm asking you. That they used to show the Simpsons shorts to the studio audience, sort of as part of the warm up, and that started getting lots and lots of laughs, and that you guys noticed.
Yes.
Obviously, right?
Well, people noticed that the audiences in the warm-up liked The Simpsons a lot.
And I also read that maybe Tracy Ullman didn't like that so much.
Yes, that's true too. Tracy was not fond of The Simpsons. She was not fond of any of the bumpers, because she thought they were not in the style and quality. She didn't think they were the quality of her show. And I told you that Albert Brooks, who's a wonderful, brilliant comic, said the same thing. He said The Simpsons brings the Tracy Ullman Show down. It's just you're doing wonderful sketches, and then you do this silly animation. He said you got to get rid of it. And instead of getting rid of it, Fox decided to spin it off and keep it. Not only keep it on the show, but spin it off into a series.
Well, let's stop there. Hold on. So, where's Sam Simon in all of this?
Oh, good. I'm glad you. Yeah. See, you know what you're doing. So anyhow, Sam Simon wasn't in the beginning of the Tracy Ullman Show, and after, I guess, the first year of the Tracy Ullman Show, Sam was pretty much out of work because nobody liked him. And in spite of his talent, he couldn't get work. And he came to me because I was an old friend and said, I wrote this sketch for the Tracy Ullman Show. Will you read it? And I read it. It was one of our funniest sketches. And I said, I went to Heidi and I said, we got to hire Sam. And she said, everybody hates Sam, including her. She had to work with him briefly on Cheers. She said, I don't want him on staff. Heidi said that. And it was fair because he treated everybody so badly. And I left out the part about where Sam and I broke up. The reason we broke up as a team, as a writing team, was because Sam started eventually treating me the way he treated everybody else. He just couldn't help it. We were really close friends, but he could not help becoming a monster, like he said himself. He could not seem to pull that in. So he started treating me really badly. And when I was running Cheers, after I'd done the show with Tim Robbins, and it was called Shaping Up, I mentioned that earlier. After I left that show, Glenn Ellis Charles asked me to run Cheers again. And Sam Simon was my partner, so I said, well, I won't do it without you bringing Sam. They didn't want Sam because everybody hated Sam. So I said, you just come by yourself and let Sam go. And I said, I don't do that sort of thing. Sam's my partner, and at the time, my best friend. I said, you take us both or neither. And they said, well, we'll take both of you, but we'll still only pay your salary. You guys have to split it. Again, stupid choices. I said, okay. So I took half my salary, gave the other half. The other half went to Sam. I don't know if anybody knows this. Sam never knew it. But they treated Sam like he was a secondary showrunner, Glenn Ellis, and everybody on the show.
Sam didn't know that you split the salary?
What he didn't know,
both getting less?
yeah, he thought what happened was they had this much money to spend. He didn't know this. He said he didn't know they even came to me first. All he knows is they came to us for this much money. But this much money is what they had offered me separately for just coming as myself. But that was without Sam knowing, because nobody wanted to hurt Sam's feelings. And I can only say, I say this now because he's not around, so it's not going to hurt his feelings. And I always say he never got a fair shake because of something he couldn't help, his personality. His talent was so exceptional that people should have given more leeway for his personality problems. And he was wonderful to Jennifer, his wife. He was wonderful to me when I was his best friend. But when I was now the showrunner again, which he had been on Taxi, but then he had been made my partner, you can't take something away from somebody without hurting them. If they never had it, maybe, it's different. Once you give somebody something, you can't take it away without hurting them. So he was my partner, and we went to Cheers, and Glenn Ellis Charles did not treat him as an equal because they really wanted me, and they didn't mean to be disrespectful or anything. They just wanted the Cheers to be a hit. So for the good of the show, they told me to take charge and make Sam kind of sit on the sideline, where he was co-charged with me on our pilot. And Sam hated me for that. He never knew that I gave him half my salary. All he knew was, I think my sound thing's got screwed up.
Are you touching your mic?
I touched it by mistake.
Hey, Louis, do you need to check his mic?
Stand by.
Okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay.
Ken, you sound like you're too good a friend.
Oh, I'm always too good at everything. That's why I've been so painful. So I've had so much pain in my life because I try too hard to make everybody happy.
So you never told Sam that you
I never told Sam. Never told him that. And then at some point, Sam, when I was running the show, if I pitched something, everybody liked it, Sam would not like it. And when Sam pitched something, he would only pitch it to Heidi or somebody else. He wouldn't pitch it to me. He wanted to pitch to his ex-partner, I guess, where his ex-partner would decide. And so Sam stopped talking to me altogether. He wouldn't talk to me in the rewrite room. He wouldn't pitch to me in the rewrite room. He wouldn't respond to what I was pitching or talking about in the rewrite room. That was the monster coming out. Everybody hated him for that because they hated that he was treating me that way, because people tend to like me because I tend to be nice to people. So everybody liked me on Cheers. Didn't like Sam at all, and Sam wasn't talking to me. He treated me very disrespectfully, and everybody saw it. So it was public disrespect, and I never understood it. I never asked Sam, why'd you stop at that point? What happened? How could you go from being my best friend to somebody who hated me? Never understood it. Never to this day don't understand it.
And yet he approached you when you were on Ullman. You just said, right? And so.
Well, when I was on Tracy Ullman, he did come to me and he said, I have this sketch. Now he didn't say, hey, let's be friends again. He said, I have this sketch.
Sorry, start that over with his name.
Oh, Sam Simon came to me when Tracy Ullman Show had a successful first year. We won an Emmy that year for the best show, and so the second year, Sam Simon came to me, unable to get work anywhere else because of his personality, despite his wonderful talent, and came to me with the sketch because he knew I would read it. Now he didn't think I'd maybe accept him with open arms, but he knew I'd read it because he knew I respected his talent. So he gave me a sketch, and it was one of the best sketches we had up to that point. And I went to Heidi and I said, we got to hire Sam on staff. We don't want to lose him, and he's available now. And Heidi didn't want to work with him because she remembered him from Cheers, that he had treated me so poorly and everybody else so poorly. And she didn't want to work with me. She said no. And she was the showrunner on the daily basis, so I was ready to back off. But I also went to Richard Takai and said, you know how good Sam is. He wants a job. It would be good for us. I'm not doing this to be a good guy, maybe a little, but mainly I'm doing it because he'd be an asset to the show. So I said that to her, and then I went to Jim Brooks, and I kind of stood up for him and Jerry Bellison, all the partners. And then Heidi came around, and I said, look, here's the thing with Sam. Here's the MO of Sam. When he needs you, he never is bad to you. And even though in the beginning, eventually he'll be bad to you because he can't help it. But in the beginning, so I said, let's just hire him until he starts offending everybody, And so she said, under those circumstances, she agreed. So Heidi, we all agreed, and we brought him aboard. And that's how Sam got on the Tracy Ullman Show. At that point, I left the Tracy Ullman Show to go do, because I did my movie with Jim Brooks at 20th Century Fox, the movie that got me to come in the first place, and nobody looked at it. Nobody would look at it. Nobody would do anything. I realized it was part of the sham. It was part of the lure to get me there. They had no intention. They basically gave me the money for a script that they had no intention of doing anything with. And I was very angry about that. And then here's what happened to me. Here's why I left. I was on the Tracy Ullman Show. They spun off The Simpsons from the Tracy Ullman Show while I was still there, and started merchandising immediately. And the merchandising was doing pretty well. Not like it is now, like a monster success. Started doing pretty well. But I never got a check from it. And I said, wait a minute, I created the Tracy Ullman Show. I brought Matt aboard the Tracy Ullman Show. Tracy Ullman Show was on the air, and Sam says, a spinoff, how come I don't get any money from the merchandising? I know the show's not making money, but I know the merchandising must be making money. And nobody would talk to me, nobody would tell me, nobody would say anything. I went to the studio, I went to Jim, I went to Richard. Nobody said, look, we don't talk about this stuff. This is just how it is. You don't get any of the merchandising. So I went to a lawyer, and a lawyer said, of course you get some of the merchandising. It's a spin-off of your show. So we filed a lawsuit. This was terrible. This was terrible for me and my career temporarily, though I recovered. Jim Brooks hated me. Fox hated me. Everybody on the show hated me because I was suing the show.
You said we. It wasn't just you.
Well, it happened to Jerry Belson, Heidi Perlman, myself. We got no merchandising. When I say we got no merchandising, I mean all of us. But they didn't sue. They said, look, we don't think there wasn't much merchandising yet. And they said, why are you making a point of this? It's making Jim very angry, and we don't want anything to do with this. So they wouldn't join the lawsuit, and they wouldn't sue on their own. So I sued alone. Jim stopped talking to me, Jim Brooks, who was my mentor and somebody I felt very close to, cut ties entirely. He said, nobody sues me. Nobody sues me and works with me. And he actually said that.
And Ken, sorry, this is a year into Simpsons
Yeah.
being out, like season 1's out? Is that
Season
right?
one,
Okay.
season one, or very early into season one.
So hold on, I just want to back up just for clarification's sake, because you left Ullman before Ullman was canceled.
Yes,
You did.
I left Ullman before it was canceled, yes.
And that was because of this merchandising
Yes.
issue already?
Because of the merchandising issue, And because they were treating me so poorly and because I had to file a lawsuit, Jim didn't want to work with me anymore. So Jim initiated that he didn't want to work with me anymore, and I got a deal at Disney, a huge deal at Disney. Disney came to me, hearing this thing, something's going on here. They said, if you leave Jim Brooks, you come here and you'll be our Jim Brooks, and we're going to pay you the way we paid Jim Brooks. So I went to Jim, and I said, Jim, I'm leaving. He said, it's about time, because he was mad at me. He said, about time. He says, you've been so depressed lately, you don't even talk. You know what made me depressed, Jim, was you guys. I would think that since you and all the situation that I consider unfair is being treated so poorly and making me so depressed, that you would have some patience with my depression and not tell me I should leave because of that. Even though I intended to leave, I didn't want to get fired. I can't believe you're telling me, good riddance, go.
Ken, I need some clarification.
Yeah.
You brought the lawsuit about merchandise while Tracy Ullman was still on the air, so they were selling Simpsons merchandise just off the interstitials?
No.
No.
Okay,
so
let me say that.
by the timeline.
Okay,
here.
okay.
Yeah.
In the first, in about the, I guess maybe it was the second year of the Tracy Ullman show, they spun off The Simpsons. The Simpsons started merchandising Simpsons shirts and things immediately, the characters on shirts and stuff. They wouldn't give me any part of the merchandising because they said, that's not your show. And I went to a lawyer who said, of course, it's a spin-off of your show. You're entitled to part of the merchandising.
Excuse me, Ken. I did understand all that. I guess I'm confused by the timeline. So Simpsons started before Ullman was canceled?
Yes.
Or at least they went into production because there's like a year
Yes.
of lead time, right?
Oh, yes.
And
The
so-
Simpsons went in before.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I wasn't getting.
So let me
Okay.
say that.
Yeah.
The Simpsons spun off while Tracy was still in production. The Simpsons spun off, and what happened that I didn't know, I keep touching the microphone. What happened that I didn't know was that they were testing this shit out of the show. They were testing it every which way. They were putting it in theaters and seeing how an audience would, in between, before the movie or after, would react to The Simpsons.
Do you know
Yes.
what movie they put it in front of?
Many, I don't know, small
many.
movies,
Okay,
small
okay,
movies,
okay.
in small theaters.
So you were anticipating the merchandise boom.
What I thought would happen is it'd make pretty good money merchandising, but probably not great money. But whatever it was, I'm a guy who believes in fairness, and for them to tell me I can't have whatever the merchandising was, I didn't expect it to be the monster. I had no idea The Simpsons would be a monster hit. I had no idea that the merchandising would be even a bigger hit than The Simpsons. What I did know is they wouldn't even talk to me about me getting anything from The Simpsons. Yet I brought Matt in, I saved it when he walked away, and it was on my show that his characters were born. They were born on the Tracy Ullman show. There was no way I shouldn't be getting some participation. They gave me a piece of The Simpsons. I had one share of The Simpsons for a spin-off, but they wouldn't give me any of the merchandising.
Got it. And we skipped a step. Who and when did they decide we should make this into a TV show?
Interesting. While we're doing the Tracy Ullman show, and some people were reacting poorly to the bumpers.
Like Albert Brooks.
Albert Brooks, in particular, who I respect enormously, so it was a big deal that he didn't like it. When they said they were going to do a spin-off of The Simpsons, I thought it was a bad idea. So I have to say that I would have not done the spin-off, and so in that regard, maybe it's fair that I don't have any money I don't get anything from The Simpsons. Because I wouldn't have spun The Simpsons off because I thought it was just a little thing.
But I want to drill down on this. You said when they said they were spinning it off, who is it?
Oh,
Is it
Jim Brooks. Okay.
Is it Gracie?
Yes, okay. I hope you can edit this all together.
We've got a team of editors. Don't worry.
Okay. So while the Tracy Ullman show was winning awards but not getting great numbers, somebody got the idea, and I don't know who it was. It might have been Richard Sakai. It might have been Jim Brooks, one of the people from Gracie Film, and somebody got together with somebody from 20th Century Fox, and they discussed this they saw potential, and I got to give them credit. They saw potential in The Simpsons that I did not see for its own series. So when I'm saying they, I'm talking about Richard Sakai, Jim Brooks, and some executive at Fox whose name I don't know.
Here?
Garth, I don't think was there yet. Maybe he was. I don't remember.
He's
He
been
was.
here in an interview about it, but again,
Okay.
he was there, he was involved, but I'm not sure where the idea came from.
It may have been Garth. That was always a mystery to me. Nobody would talk to me. And to this day, they don't talk to me because they're mad at me. So I don't know what happened. I don't know how somebody, I know it wasn't me because I'd never have said, let's spin this thing off. Somebody, it had to be Jim for sure involved. It had to be Richard for sure involved, Sakai, Jim Brooks. And Fox had to have a hand in it. And somebody saw the potential and they all agreed on it. And at some point, they decided to do the Simpsons. Now, Sam Simon had a lot of experience in animation. He loves drawing. He was a wonderful cartoon artist, wonderful. Whereas Matt Groening can't draw to save his life. Sam was wonderful, and Sam would draw these funny things, and he'd draw the characters in different ways and stuff. And he just pissed Matt off right from the get-go. And
Because he was jealous of Sam's ability, or?
I don't know if Matt was jealous of Sam's ability or Sam was inappropriate in the way he dealt with Matt. By this point, because I was suing for whatever minor merchandising I could get, everybody cut me off. Everybody cut me off. I was ostracized from the Tracy Ullman Show and The Simpsons. So.
You're being called?
Yeah. So it was away. I won't answer that.
No,
I might as well see who it is.
If you need to answer it.
Okay. Do you have somebody come in after me?
Actually, I do have something at 3 o'clock, so
Yeah.
I gotta finish.
What time is it now? Oh, wow.
2:35.
All right. Oh, I know.
Do you think we can do it in that time?
Yeah, we can do it. I'm gonna plow through now because I'm near the end. Because as I said, are we still recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still going.
So as I
But
said,
I want to ask you something in here. I thought Tracy Ullman also sued like you did.
she did.
She did.
Tracy sued too.
Separate from you though.
Yes. Tracy sued separate from me. Tracy always considered me part of Jim's entourage. So Tracy didn't trust me. And Tracy to this day doesn't like me because she thinks somehow I sabotaged her suit and her show. But here's what happened to the Tracy Ullman Show. They tested The Simpsons and it went through the roof. It tested well in theaters, better than the movie that was showing. It tested great everywhere. And nobody told me that. But at some point, when I had already accepted a job at Disney for mega bucks, so I wasn't really unhappy. And I didn't think The Simpsons was going to be a big hit, so it didn't really matter much to me, except on principle. But they weren't talking to me. Everybody's being really crappy to me. So at one point, they come to my cousin who was doing my business stuff, because I still didn't get it. I didn't pick up another agent because I didn't think I needed one. They came to him and said, we'll give you X number of dollars. I guess I can tell you the money. You want to know the money?
Sure. I want to know whatever you tell me.
They said, we'll give you $600,000 to go away, to be friends again. We'll give you $600,000. You'll drop the lawsuit. We'll own both shows, and you'll have the $600,000. And then we won't be fighting anymore because we'd like to work with you again. This was all a lie. The truth was they saw the merchandising going through the roof. They saw the show going through the roof. They had tested it thoroughly, and they were lying to me. And they also did say, look, this is going to be a little show on our network, and so you just give it up. Give up the Tracy Ullman Show, which at that point was winding down because Jim Brooks didn't want to do both shows. This is why Tracy's mad at Jim and me. Jim canceled it. The network didn't cancel it. Jim canceled. Jim Brooks canceled the show because he didn't have time. He was doing too many things to have 2 shows on the air, and he went with The Simpsons, which was a smart move, obviously. Tracy hates him for that. She hates me for that because she still thinks I'm part of his entourage. But when they came to me for $600,000, I thought, well, it was years later. The lawsuit was still pending, and we weren't talking. Everything was bad. They said, we want to be in business with you again. We want to be friends again. We're going to give you $600,000. That's a lot of money then.
But that's a lot of money now.
Okay.
Oh, wait, here we go. But to be clear, that's Fox approaching you, or
Yes,
Gracie?
Fox.
It's Fox.
That's
Okay.
Fox. Fox approached me, actually approached my amateur agent,
Your cousin agent.
my cousin agent, through his lawyer. He actually hired a lawyer because my cousin agent, it turned out, didn't know anything. So he hired a lawyer who was an entertainment lawyer, and I didn't really know what was going on there, I didn't know anything about that part of the business. And together, they went to Fox, I think, and said, I think it was their idea, though I'll never know this one either. I don't know if it was Fox's idea or their idea, to say, offer Ken a lot of money and say it's in goodwill, and they'll get their percentage, my cousin and the lawyer, and Fox will have back their 1%. I only had 1% from the spinoff. I don't know if that was right either, but I only had 1% of the spinoff of The Simpsons, which probably is worth about, $100 million now. But they came with, so they did. They came to me and said, we'll give you $600,000 and we'll all be friends again and all the bad feelings will go away. And I thought that sounded good. I'm a friendly guy. You can tell already, right?
Yeah.
So I said, yes, I'll take the $600,000. So I took the $600,000. This is how show business works. For those of you who are going to watch this and don't know, always ask what the net is. Don't ever accept an offer of money. Ask them what the net money is, what you'll end up with after they take things out that they're going to invent. They took out so many things that they invented out of that $600,000. I ended up with $200,000 for my share of The Simpsons. That's probably worth about $100 million or something. I know it's not worth that much, but many, many millions at 1%. Sam Simon he told me, I don't know if this is true, he told me he's making $10 million a year after they fired him. You know Sam Simon got fired from The Simpsons.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you to speculate about that because I don't know if you were talking to him then or not.
I was. Sam got fired because he and Matt could not get along. Sam Simon, and Matt's going to not like this, and I think Matt's very talented, and it was his initial thing that made it all come to start. But Jim Brooks and Sam Simon invented the form of The Simpsons because Matt didn't know anything about television. So it says created by Matt and it says developed by Sam and Jim. The developed by is critical. The developed by is the form of the show. Now, Matt's humor was there, Matt's sensibilities were there, but they put it together, and apparently, since Matt got all the credit, nobody mentioned Sam Simon in the old days when it was really going strong in the early days of the series. Sam and Matt had ego conflict. Matt got all the attention, Matt was the star, and Sam was just working on the show, and it made Sam furious, and Sam, not furious, it upset Sam. And Sam and Matt then were like oil and water. They just could not come together because they felt that they were enemies from the start. And I don't know, in the same way I don't know how Sam got the idea to not talk to me anymore. I don't know how Sam decided that he'd risk everything by not being friendly with Matt, whose name's signed on everything. Matt was The Simpsons, and yet Sam went up against him and he got fired.
You're confirming everything that people read out there, but it's great to hear from somebody who actually knew the players,
Yeah.
I heard that Sam ingraining oil and water. Sam lacking certain people skills that apparently Matt has.
Yes.
My understanding though is that Richard Sakai also wasn't a big fan of Sam Simon's.
Yes,
and
true.
that Richard was also sort of helping Matt drive a wedge between Brooks and Simon until Simon left or was fired.
It's all true. Do you want me to
I
say
would
any
love
of
you
that?
to say any of that you want to say.
Okay, well, it's all true. So what happened was there were... There's a reason why we always will have wars. People, ultimately, when they're brought too close together, don't get along. And...
Gee, I wonder what two countries you're thinking of.
Yeah. And Sam and Matt both very talented people, very strong-willed people, were not getting along, and it was making life miserable for people who ran the show, primarily Richard Sakai, who was running the show, and Jim Brooks, who owned the show mostly. You know, he was the top man. And consequently, I believe, and I don't know for sure, that there was an effort to get rid of Sam, to make life easier for everybody. Which is a shame because they needed Sam's talent. But Sam, in the third year, I believe it was, that early in the series, was fired. But he was fired in a very generous way. In those days, I got to backtrack a little bit. In those days, they gave away merchandising because they had no idea what a fortune it could make. The reason Matt is so rich is more than the Simpsons. It's the merchandising he got from it. And Sam had a big piece of the merchandising. So when Sam was fired, they gave Sam everything he was promised, but don't come to work. So Sam got the money he was being paid as an executive producer. He got the money he was paid as the developer of the series. He got the money from the merchandising. And Sam personally told me, because years later we had a Cheers reunion, and Sam did come to the Cheers reunion, and we sat at the same table. At some point, Sam told me he made $20 million a year doing nothing for this show. No, it was $10 million a year. Excuse me for exaggerating. It was only $10 million a year for doing nothing. But he wanted to work on the show. It wasn't, you know, he just didn't want to work with Matt, and he didn't want to work under those circumstances, and nobody there wanted to work with Sam anymore.
So Sam, so just to recap a minute there, it is true you think that Richard Sakai and Groening sort of both maneuvered against Sam, but Sam was also kind of driving them crazy, right?
Yes, I believe what happened was Sam was driving them crazy. Sam was so strong-willed that he was willing to attack those people who were critical to the show even more so than himself, which was not a smart move, but Sam, as I said, didn't have good people skills, and in certain social skills, he would offend people because he was truthful about it. When he was mad at somebody, or he disliked somebody, or he thought something they did was stupid, he would just tell them. And we don't do that usually in show business. You don't tell somebody their idea is stupid, even if it is stupid. Sam would tend to do that. So, yes, everybody drove what Richard Sakai and Matt Groening helped get rid of Sam, and Jim had a big fight with Sam, Jim Brooks. So Sam alienated everybody, as he always does, and he's the one who said it every show he ever started, and he ended up being a monster by the end. He was a monster, but he was so talented. If I had gone with the Tracy Ullman, with the Simpsons, I would have found a way to ease the tension because I was good at that, and I would have kept Sam around, and the show would have benefited from it.
I don't doubt that, actually. And the other person I want to ask you about, because my understanding is that he had a big falling out with Brooks, was Jerry.
Yes, Jerry Belson. Jerry Belson was Jim Brooks' best friend, and he had a falling out over the same issue I had. He wanted some merchandising, and they wouldn't give him any merchandising. And he was best friends, and they stopped talking. Everybody stops talking. We're in a business where talking is so important. Everybody likes to schmooze. The people stop talking as ultimate penalty. So Jerry Belson and Jim Brooks stopped talking, stopped being friends, became hostile with one another, and then I believe Jerry left the show. I'm not sure because by then I was over at Disney with my really great deal, and I was very happy about that. It was only when I started seeing the numbers on The Simpsons, I started saying, oh man, I just walked away from the jackpot. We all get in the business to make, I know we all say we get in the business for the art. Art's second. We all get in the business for the money. No, we all get in the business for the art, but money is very important. And we all know when we get in the business for the art, there's a potential of making a ton of money. And I was a success from day one. I told you my first script won the Writers Guild Award. I won an Emmy within 2 years for writing, and I was on the best shows and all this stuff. So I kept getting offered these things that had huge potential, and I'd always make the absolute wrong decision. This way will make you rich, this way will make you poor, or not poor, but this way you'll get nothing. I always took that road. I don't know how I managed to do that.
But you did pretty well anyway.
I did well, but not like, I don't have that mega thing that Sam had with just his little piece, and that Richard Sakai has, and that Jim Brooks has. And I had it in my hands, and I let it slip away. And the deal I went with Disney turned out bad because Garth and Sear actually hired me for Disney. So Garth had left by then and was at Disney. Garth hired me for Disney, and they paid me a fortune to develop stuff. And then they hired a guy named Dean Valentine to oversee development, and Dean hated me for some reason. I'll never know why he hated me. And I could not get anything past him. And by this time I had won several Emmys. I had Emmy nominations, I had Writer Guild nominations, Writers Guild awards. No matter what I turned in to this guy, he hated it. He'd always say, "This isn't good enough, go back and fix it." And that's it. You can't keep telling me that. You've never written anything in your life or anything anybody's ever seen. I have all these credits. Stop telling me my stuff's no good. In fact, at one point, another entity of 3 people sold a series, but sold 2 series at the same time. And I just won't bring it up because I'm trying to move on a little quicker. That they couldn't do it, so they asked me to actually write the pilot for their series that they sold. So I wrote the pilot, and Dean Valentine looked at it and says, "This is crap." I said, "First of all, why are you even talking to me like that? Why don't you just give me your notes? Why are you so offensive?" And he hated me. And he would tell me, "At best, your work in this is mediocre. The best parts of this that you've done are mediocre, and the rest is bad." And I said, "I turned this into to the people who sold the series. They love it. And they're the ones who are going to make by far the most money, who are going to make a fortune from it if it goes. Why would they want to advance a script that's crap?" And he said, "Because they're lazy." I said, "I don't buy that excuse. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars for these guys potentially, and you're telling me they're too lazy to write the pilot and even though I wrote one that's bad, they won't rewrite it because they're too lazy. That's just total bullshit." So I went to his superior, Frank. What's his name? You'll know, huh?
Was it Mancuso?
No, it was Rich Frank.
Okay.
Do you know Rich Frank? You know Rich Frank? No. Okay. So Rich Frank at the time was head of development for Disney. And I went to him and I said, "Look, you gotta get rid of this guy. I can't work with him." And he got furious with me. He said, "Don't come in here and tell me who to hire or fire." He says, "Your job is to make a show, not to tell us how to run the company." Are you kidding me? I said, "I want out of here. I want out of here."
That was that?
Yeah. So I left.
I got 5 minutes left.
Oh, shit. You have 5 minutes left?
I got
So
5 minutes left.
what didn't I tell you that
Well,
you
I
needed?
want to ask you something about Jerry Belson. I heard a story that he got sick and he passed away, right?
Yes.
And I heard a story, and I'm curious if you heard about this. I think Brooks went to his memorial service and spoke, and everyone there was offended because they knew about the split between them, and he was actually asked to leave. Have you ever heard of that story?
No, I don't know that story.
Okay, because I was like, wow, that takes balls, man. If you're fighting with somebody and then you go to the memorial service, and apparently...
Oh, said bad things?
No, he stood up to speak well of
Oh,
Jerry, but
they didn't
people
want
there
him.
were offended because they knew that he and Jerry had
If I had to bet, I would bet that happened, but I don't know. I can't
I was
verify
just curious
that.
about that.
The one other thing I was going to say is cool about Jerry Belson. When he got very sick at the end, he said on his tombstone or his grave marker, he wanted to say, "I did it their way." That's what he wanted. Now I don't know if he did that or not, but he always felt he had a long, successful career, but it never made him happy because he always felt he did it their way.
Ken, this has been awesome, and you've told me so many things that I didn't know, or confirmed things that I had read, but you never know until someone who was there tells you.
Yeah.
I've got like 3 minutes left. Is there anything I haven't been smart enough to ask you about your time with this involvement with this genesis of The Simpsons that I should know?
I have to say this about The Simpsons. I never watched one episode. I can't. And one time after this thing where I didn't get a penny from The Simpsons because I told you with the back end stuff they took out of the 600, I ended up with just a fraction of that. So I ended up with nothing, and then I saw it take off as this monster hit. one day I'm working in my office in my home, and I look out the window, and there's a big billboard that I can see from my window, and it's The Simpsons. And that was there for months. I could sit there at my window, and I had to stare at The Simpsons. And to this day, anytime I see a Simpsons product, I have to turn away from it. It just, because after I lost my 1%, after I walked away from the show under false, a false understanding of what was really going on, I couldn't stand anything about The Simpsons. I couldn't watch the episodes. I couldn't see the commercials. And I actually did a little therapy. I went into therapy for a little while, saying, I gave up. This was, everybody who's successful for a while gets their monster hit. That was my monster hit, and I walked away from it. I could have been on the staff of it. I had an alienated gym. I could have, been, it could be, would be. But,
Well, Ken, I feel extra lucky that you've come to talk to me about it, because it's not your favorite topic.
It's not my favorite topic. Actually, I wasn't going to come here. My wife told me to, because she said it'd be good to talk about it. And whenever I read about this, whenever I have read or heard about The Simpsons, when I couldn't avoid reading or seeing it, nobody ever mentions me. Nobody ever mentions the genesis of the show. And Matt gets all the credit. And it's not fair. At least Sam Simon and Jim Brooks were crucially important to the art of the show. I was crucial to the show ever being thought of, for it ever coming into existence through that first meeting. But Jim and Sam gave the show the style. But Matt obviously was critical to the sensibilities of the show. So they had a magic formula there, and I could have been part of it. And over the merchandising issue, which I was right about, by the way, but I eventually dropped, I wasn't part of it, and so I can't stand The Simpsons. I can't stand to look at anything Simpsons.
Well, I'm glad your wife told you to come. This is an excellent interview.